say I have these dates and I want to get the date that's 7 business days after this date. I need to make sure I exclude weekends and public holidays. The function you can use here is the Workday function. Now there are 2 different versions of this. This is the updated version where you can pick your weekends because not all weekends in the world are Saturdays and Sundays. So in case your weekend is different, go with this one, it's more flexible. It requires a start date, this is it. The number of days, well, we want 7 business days or 7 working days. Let's pick our weekends. These in this case are Saturday and Sunday. So I'm going to go with the default, which is 1. And holidays is a list that you provided. And I already have the list of public holidays here. So I'm just going to select it, press F4 to fix it because I'm planning to copy my function down, close the bracket, press enter. And that's 7 business days after the 1st of January. Let's send this down and cross-check our April dates. My start date is the 1st of April, 7 business days gives me the 13th of April. Here I have a screenshot of the calendar. Let's start counting. That's 1 working day, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So notice the weekend is excluded, but also the 5th of April because that's a holiday here. If it wasn't a holiday, so if I remove this, keep your eye on this value, my end date is going to be the 12th. Formulas aren't functions, but they're a shortcut to writing functions. Here I have a separate sheet for each account with different amounts and transaction numbers. I want to get the total of these in the total sheet. The long way of writing this is to write a separate sum function and reference each of these sheets. The better way of writing this is to use a 3D formula. Just start off with equals, type in sum. Now in this case, I'm using sum because I'm adding the values, but you can use other functions depending on your requirements. Now let's go to our first sheet and select the range that we want. I'm going to go all the way to row 15 because some of our sheets have more data. Now here comes the part that's important. Hold down the Shift key and then go to the last tab you want included. Take a look at the formula bar. It's going from the COGS sheet to the non-operating expenses sheet. Everything else in the middle will be included. Close bracket, press enter, and we get the same result. The advantage of doing it this way is that it's dynamic. If I happen to have another account, so I'm going to drop lease in the middle somewhere, it's automatically going to be included in my total column. So in lease, I have 2 values. This is the difference between my 3D formula version and the old version. The thing about the ifs functions is that you can sum, get the average of, or count values based on one or multiple criteria. So in this case, let's say I want to add the amount where account equals services. I can use the sumifs function. The first requirement is the sum range. So this is the column where I have my values in. In this case, it's the amount column. Now I'm going to fix the cell referencing by pressing F4 because I want to copy my formula down. Next requirement is the criteria range 1. This is the range on which my condition is based on. In this case, it's the account column. So I'm going to select that, fix it with F4. Last requirement in this case is my actual criteria. That's services, which is sitting in G3. Close bracket, press enter, and that's the total amount for the services account. Let's drag this down, and we get the total amount where account equals employee-related expenses. But what if I want to add another condition? That condition is based on the date column, and I want to only add the amounts for the days after 15th of January. An account has to be employee-related expenses, so I have 2 conditions. Well, it's very easy to add another condition. We have criteria range 2. First is the range which the condition is based on. In this case, it's the date column. I'm just going to be consistent and press F4 to fix this. And then is the actual criteria itself, which is sitting right here. Now notice this is not just the date, but I have the greater than sign in front because I want the days after this date. When I press enter, I get my total amount based on these 2 conditions. Now in case you don't want to put the greater than sign in the cell, you can add it to your formula, but you have to put it in quotation marks. So this is where my criteria comes in. I want to put the greater than sign. I have to put it inside quotation marks, then use the ampersand to connect the text with the cell reference. Okay, so keep this in mind if you're putting the signs inside the formula. You can use the Averageifs as well as the Countifs functions. The only difference between Countifs and the other ones is that you don't have the value range. It only counts your criteria. It allows you to check for a condition and then decide on what you want returned if that condition is true and what you want returned if that condition is false. So basically, you're not just saying equals this cell, but you're checking for something and then deciding what you're returning. In this case, I have a list of accounts and amounts, and I want to put the word check in the cell if my amount is greater than 20,000, because I want to flag those rows. Here, I have a condition, so I'm going to use the if function. Now, the first thing the if function needs is the logical test. This is what we're checking for. In this case, I want to see if this number is greater than 20,000. So I'm going to type in 20,000, but it's good practice to put your numbers in separate cells because you can visually see what your filter is and also be able to change it easily. Next requirement is what I want returned if this condition is true. So basically, if this number is really greater than 20,000, well, I want to return the word check. And I have to put this in quotation marks because it's text. The last requirement is what I want returned if this condition isn't met. So if my number is less than or equal to 20,000. Well, in this case, I don't want to put anything in the cell. I want to put nothing, and nothing is quotation mark, close bracket, press enter. And in this case, I get nothing because this number is less than 20,000. Now I'm going to send this down and we get 2 checks here. There is a lot that you can do with the if function. You can check for multiple conditions by nesting an if function inside another if function. The Vlookup function allows you to look up a value in another range and return a corresponding value. So here I have account numbers, I'm missing description. I have the description in a separate table here. Now this information could be in another sheet. Just for simplicity, I put it on the same sheet so it's easier for us to follow the formula. It starts off with Vlookup. First thing we need is the lookup value. Which value are we looking up? It's this one right here. Next is the table array. Where's the range where we can find this value and what we want returned? Well, my range is right here. I just need the content. I don't need the headers. And important here is that the column where my lookup value is sitting in has to be the first column. The column I want returned needs to be to the right-hand side of this column. Now, they don't have to be stuck together like in this case. There can be other columns in between. In this example, I just have these 2 columns. Another important point is that we have to fix this because I'm planning to pull down this formula. Next requirement is the column index which I want returned. Do I want to get back the first column or the second column? Well, my account description is sitting in the second column, so I need to put a 2 here. And last is important because I need to decide if I am looking for an approximate match or an exact match. Now, default is approximate, so if we don't put anything and leave the formula, it's going to look up for an approximate match. This is something we definitely don't want in this case. We want to go with an exact match. So select false, close bracket, press enter, and we get the description back. Let's just send this down. If you have Office 365, you have an improved version of this function, and it's called the Lookup function. It's a lot more flexible and easier to use. And if you need more information on that, I have a few videos on the channel. The trim function is something you might need when your Vlookup function doesn't work. So check this out. Here, just like before, we want to get the account description from this table right here. We're going to go with Vlookup. Lookup value is our account code. Table array is this right here. We're going to fix it with the F4 key. I want to return the second column And I want an exact match, so I'm going to go with false. But now, when I press enter, it's not going to work. When I send this down, nothing works. Why?